Econometric Research Association Seminer. Today we have the honor to host Mürüvvet Büyükboyacı from Middle East Technical University, Department of Economics. She kindly accepted to share her research titled Experimental Economics as a research tool with us. Depending on my limited knowledge about the topic, I can say that before one of the differences between science and social science was that in social science experiments cannot be made. But in recent years, we see that this difference started to disappear. Now there are several examples of experiments in social sciences. Actually, one thing that I personally believe is that what makes experiments in social sciences more difficult than the experiments in sciences is the existence of human factor. Now, let me end my talk and give some information about our guest Mürüvvet Büyükboyacı, and then we can go on with her research. She obtained her license degree in mathematics from Bilkent University in 2005. And master's degree in economics from Sabancı University in 2007. And she obtained her PhD in social sciences from California Institute of Technology in 2013. There she designed and conducted experiments on coordination games and contests. After her PhD, she started working as an assistant professor in economics department at Middle East Technical University, where she served as one of the founding members of the behavioral and experimental laboratory. Her research interests include applied microeconomics, experimental economics, and behavioral economics. She is the recipient of Matthew Young Researcher Award, TÜBİTAK 2232 Fellowship, TÜBİTAK 3501 Career Grant, and Mary Sklodowska-Curie Individual Fellowships. Now the floor is yours, Mürüvvet. We are ready to listen to your speech.
Thank you, Sıdıka Hocam, for the kind words and your invitation to me for this seminar series. Okay, welcome everyone. So today I'm going to talk about experimental economics as a research tool. The question arises, these divisions of economics arises due to this question: how precise economic theory's predictions are. In order to understand this question, experiments are being held. So experimental economics came up, and to explain deviations from economic theory's predictions, behavioral economics came up. So in this talk, first I'm going to explain those two topics. First, behavioral economics and experimental economics. And then I'm going to give an example of how to implement those and how to analyze by using my experience, by using my own research, collaboration, and free writing in teams. Okay, so let's start. So we are making some assumptions for the models, right? So we are assuming that people have a good access to information, they can process information perfectly, they execute their plans, and they only care about the personal gain. So these are the assumptions that we are making. But these assumptions are not holding generally. So when you are trying to buy a laptop and when you are searching for a laptop in the market, you do not know all qualities of the laptops and all prices and choosing among the best one, choosing the best one among those. Okay, so what humans do is different than what the assumptions are. So people do not access perfect information. While processing the information, they have limited rationality. For instance, when you are deciding for a strategy in a repeated game that you play, you do not remember all of the strategies that you played in earlier times. Okay, so you have limited rationality. And they have self-control problems. It may be difficult to execute their plans. And in addition to personal gain, people care about others as well. Okay, so what does behavioral economics do? So it accounts for psychological, cognitive, and emotional factors affecting the decision. So Nobel Prize in 2017 goes to Taylor because of making economics more human, building a bridge between economic and psychological analysis of individual decision making, and profound impact on many areas on economic research and policy. And this has been done through the nudges. Okay, I'm going to come to that at the end of this first part of the talk. So we are going to mention the following topics from the behavioral economics for to be an example for what does behavioral economics do. So we are going to look at the limited rationality, endowment effect, and reference points, self-control, and fairness. Okay. Any question up to now? Okay. So limited rationality is related to choice that I'm going to give the examples for that now. As I said in the laptop example, so due to limits on information, time, or abilities, people may not choose the best possible outcome. Okay. Instead, they choose the satisfying, good enough alternative. Okay, so this comes from Herbert Simon, and this is an old phenomena. But theory of mental accounting is recent due to Taylor, and this is about how people organize, formulate, and evaluate financial decisions. He says that to simplify the decisions, people create separate accounts. For instance, when you are choosing your vacation, you are not choosing, given the budget, you are not choosing the best vacation available. So you have a separate account for vacation, you have a separate account for kids' education, you have separate account for grocery shopping, separate account for bills, etc. So given your account for vacation that you separated from your budget, you choose the optimal one. Okay, so this is called as theory of mental accounting. The second example that I am going to give you is from the experiments showing the endowment effect. What is this endowment effect? People give more value to the goods they own. Okay, so to understand, so this is repeatedly found, and actually theories are developed related to that. Okay, so in the initial experiment showing this effect is some of the subjects are given mugs, okay, and they are asked to set a price for selling their mugs. And some of the subjects are not given the mugs, and they are asked to set a price in which they are willing to buy, okay. And when they look at those prices, there is a difference between the sellers and buyers, okay. Sellers set much higher prices compared to the buyers, and this is called as endowment effect. Okay, so another thing is example is the reference point.
Excuse me, Mürüvvet, are we still in the first slide or?
It's not showing you?
Yes.
Oh, hi.
Okay now.
Şimdi görüyor musunuz?
Yes, yes. Now it's okay.
Then maybe I shouldn't. Sorry. Maybe I shouldn't make it full screen then. Huh? You can see now, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, we can see now.
Then Maybe I shouldn't do full screen. I don't know why it happens. So sorry.
Okay, it is okay now.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. Okay, so I explain endowment effect. After that, so reference points can be another example. We are modeling theories by using the expected utility theory, right? So expected utility theory evaluates an outcome based on total resources. Nevertheless, an alternative theory developed based on the observations. People not only care about how much they own at the moment, they also care about the change, how they come to that place, okay? So the change in total resources. And they judge alternatives according to the gains or losses they generate relative to the reference point, okay? An example for that is the discount sales, for instance. When you go for a shopping, you see in many places it's saying 40% discount, 10% discount, blah, blah. When you are buying from an item from a discount sale, you feel better because compared to the reference point, you think that you are paying less. So it is much used in the marketing. So this behavioral example is actually used many times in the marketing. Okay, so another example is related to self-control. So short-term temptations threaten long-term well-being. For instance, you may try to lose weight, but at the same time, you cannot stop eating junk food, right? So you want to stop smoking, but it's hard to stop smoking, okay? So in economic theory, we use discounting, but we are using exponential discounting, which means that the ranking of two future alternatives will always remain the same. For instance, if a person prefers $100 now over $110 tomorrow, then the same person should prefer $100 in 30 days to $110 in 31 days. But when people are asked about this decision, their decision is not like that. So, which means that exponential discounting is not holding. Okay. So instead, okay, many people prefer $100 now over $110 tomorrow. But they prefer more and later option when they are asked for the future. Okay, so very few people prefer $100 in 30 days to $110 31 days. So which is showing there's a difference between what I decide for now is different than what I decide for the future. Planning self is different than doing self. Okay. So, which means that hyperbolic discounting is dropping immediately. So there's a high discounting for the near future, and it decreases for the far away future. But standard discounting, there's no difference for like this for the standard discounting. Okay, and there's also another thing. So people not only care about their payoff, but they also care about others' payoff. Okay, so they also have ideas about what is fair. Okay, for instance, if there's an unexpected rain, there will be a high demand for umbrellas. So what does classical demand shock say? So the price will increase, right? But if the shopkeeper increases prices, many consumers react negatively due to greedy behavior of shopkeepers. So they care about fairness of the price increase as well. Okay, so this fair, so they protest sometimes if such a decision happens by the shopkeeper. Okay, so this is observed in the dictator games too. So in dictator game, there are two players, the proposer and the responder. So the proposer is given some amount of money to divide between himself and the other person. And other person doesn't have a saying. So proposer is the allocator actually. Okay, so what this game theory says that in here, so the proposer should take all of the money to himself. But it is observed that more than 60% of the subjects pass a positive amount of money. Okay, so this is about inequality aversion, caring about the others' payoff, etc. Not only caring about your own payoff. Okay, so these are the proofs that we observe. People's behavior may deviate from our assumptions or our predictions, etc. Okay, research in behavioral economics can be used by politicians and other decision makers to design alternatives that provide benefits to society. Okay, so this is called as nudging. There's a famous book by Taylor called as Nudge. And nudging is used in pension, tax, education, energy saving, organ donation, choice architecture. Actually, this choice architecture thing is used marketing people quite a bit of time, right? So I get angry when I see this, like sürpriz yumurtalar at the end of this grocery store, because your kid doesn't stop and always want this sürpriz yumurta at the end of the shopping, right? So, for instance, in order to decrease the child obesity, such a nudge is applied in UK. So in the school canteens, instead of junk food, they show the healthy foods in the front, so that kids saw the healthy food and they buy more. Okay, so by changing what is visible, not visible, they played with their decisions. They lead to healthier decisions. Or people's choice can be affected what is defined as a default, right? So in the old driving licenses, for instance, I remember from my own, it is clicked as I do not want to donate my organs in the case of an accident. Okay, so default option, for instance, in Turkey, not to donate your organs in the case of an accident. So if this default option is changed, people not actively changing this to not donate. Okay, so Google is also paying extra amount of monies to be a default search engine, for instance, because of this, because Google knows that nobody is going to change the search engine actively. Okay, so this bireysel emeklilik situation is similar, pension savings. So to make people save more, so default option is saving. So, but I don't know whether it holds for our country or not. Okay, so for this, experimental tools are used for these studies. Okay, so this is a picture from our laboratory in METÜ. Okay, so behavioral and experimental laboratory. In here we have 24 computers, and we invite subjects to the lab for implementing an experiment. So how to use this experimental tool? So in any kind of research, you need an idea first, okay? But to motivate the subjects, you need money. So you need grant application for this, okay? So subjects' decisions should be motivated with money. And before running an experiment, you need an ethical approval from the school, okay? So you need to take a consent from the subjects saying that they voluntarily participate and can exit anytime they want. And you are showing that by explaining your design, etc., you are not exploiting subjects at all, okay? And traditionally, observations, as Sıdıka hocam said, observations of economic phenomena occurring naturally were the only source of the data to test the theory. Through the emergence of experimental economics, how we obtain the data changed. So this is a methodology, a new methodology for doing the research. Okay, so through experiments, it is possible to obtain empirical evidence under controlled conditions and replicability. Having control and replicability is important. So the term control means that the circumstances under which evidence is obtained are well known and can be varied deliberately. So this is gonna affect how treatments happen. So treatment word means that changing those circumstances deliberately are going to be treatments of any experiment. Okay. The term replication refers to the possibility of repeating an experiment under exactly the same conditions. So in order to have replication studies, for instance, when you are submitting an article to a journal, you need to send your instructions to the journal as well, and you are describing how you implement the experiment in detail, so that anyone who wants to replicate your study can replicate. Okay. So what happens when the subject comes into the experimental laboratory? So a group of people receives instructions that place them at a schematic representation of an economic situation where they have the role of certain agents, for example, firms, workers, or consumers. But instructions should be in a neutral language in general, so that framing is avoided. So there are some homegrown preferences people have. We need to not while they are coming to the laboratory. Okay, so you need to use as much as neutral language as possible. Okay, and each participant can choose from several options, each of which involves certain monetary gain. Okay, so if it is an individual decision making, if you are trying to understand people's risk preferences, those choices is going to be affected just from probability. If it is a game, then it's going to be affected from others' choices as well. Organizers observe and record the decisions made by the participants in the experiment and use this data as a source of information on the economic problem to be studied. Okay, so these are the purpose of the labs. Okay, so as the initial purpose, as I started my presentation, whether the economic theories predictions are correct or not. So testing theories is the first purpose. Okay, measuring risk, time, and social preferences. How the measured preferences affect economic outcome. How the institutions shape preferences. Do people sort into activities according to their preferences is another purpose. Or exploring bounded rational behavior. To what extent do people apply backward induction? How and what people do learn from repeated games, for instance. Establish empirical regularities as a basis of new theories. As I said, in the dictator game, for instance, we observe quite much deviation from the game theoretical prediction, right? So this happens for the ultimatum game. This is a similar bargaining game to dictator. But these deviations later on, so these deviations observed in many experiments repeatedly, and new theory is built up on those observations by Ferren, Schmidt, Baltonov, Kunfolds, etc. Okay, so it's about like people's not only care about their own payoff, they also care about others' payoff, like envy, guilt. These kind of situations may affect their payoff as well. Theory-free comparison of institutions. So, for instance, when you are comparing the markets, you can compare efficiency properties of the institutions, which market design brings higher welfare to the players, buyers or sellers. And longitudinal experiments, what would happen if one changed policies or implemented new institutions, for instance. Before changing policy, it would be good to run an experiment. Okay, so now what's the difference between experimental economics and behavioral economics? Experimental economics is essentially a method of empirical investigation. Behavioral economics is concerned with importing relevant insights from other disciplines and exploring their implications for economics. Is it clear up to now? Any question? Okay, then the first two parts of my talk finished, and I'm gonna continue with the example for running an experiment by explaining my own research. Okay, so this is a paper with Andrea Robert from Middlebury College, collaboration and free riding in team contest. So this is published in Labor and Economics in 2017. So in this paper, we are looking at team-based incentives. Okay, team-based incentives are commonly used by firms. In team-based incentives, there are two possibilities for the workers. Okay, so workers can free ride and decrease their efforts, or workers work harder not to let down their teammates. So the second one is called a social group identity. And this is not an economic prediction. This is a prediction from sociology, I guess. So by teams, we are working with teams. There's another possibility for team-based incentives. It is the productivity gains due to worker complementarities. But this hasn't been studied much in the literature. So in this study, we are studying on that. So this is a real effort experiment. We are using two separate tasks to produce output for both teams and individuals. We are changing the team production function. Okay, so either each team member must complete each task to contribute team output, or team members can collaborate by dividing workload across the team. Okay. And then, as I said, in the literature, although there are papers related to team incentives, whether in the team individuals free ride or work harder, as it said in the social group identity, there's not much work about whether teams use complementary in their skills, their comparative advantages, etc., is not studied. Okay. So this is our experiments. In our experiment, we used 3 stages. Okay, so in the first stage, subjects collect those balls. Okay, and we played with the speed of the balls to assign skills to them. Okay, we changed their skills by changing the speed of the balls. Okay, in the piece rate stage, they earned money for each collected ball. Okay, and then they first collect red balls and blue balls. In the individual contest stage, they saw such a screen. In the team contest, there was also a team contest stage. I'm going to explain those in a minute. Okay, in the piece rate stage, by this green tray, they collect those balls, and it was a real effort task with induced heterogeneous productivity skills. As I said, we are going to play with these skills to create complementarity in skills among team members. Okay. In the ball catching stage, they saw such a screen, both in the individual contest and team contest stage, for 90 seconds. Okay, and the game started with as if neither button is hit, neither button was hit. Okay, and then by clicking on catch red balls drop. By clicking on catch blue balls drop, and they were able to collect. So these are different tasks that they can do. Okay, and when they click on catch blue, red balls disappear, and when they click on catch red, blue balls disappear. And catching balls were costly. Okay, there was a time cost for catching balls, as in the real cases, right? By clicking on neither, the subjects can avoid this cost. But they are not going to be able to collect balls. I'm going to explain you how collecting balls will affect their payoff in a minute. So it's going to be a contest. Okay, so there's a team contest part and individual contest part. I'm going to explain individual contest first. Okay, so the game is subjects are told that they are going to be given 200 tokens, which were corresponding to 20 Turkish liras, right? So 10 tokens were 1 Turkish lira. So in the experiment, we are using some kind of conversion, some kind of different currency. And they are awarded this money according to the linear contest function. Okay, so this P1 and P2 is the points obtained by agent 1 is P1, points obtained by agent 2 is P2, and the points obtained by agent I is determined according to the minimum of red and blue balls he collects. Okay, and if these points are equal, with 1/2 probability, one agent earns the prize, with 1/2 probability, other agent earns the prize. But the higher agent 1 obtains, the higher point agent 1 obtains compared to agent 2, he's going to increase the probability of winning. Okay, and the time cost is 24 tokens. I'm going to explain why we chose those parameters. Okay, so and there are 2 types of agents. As I said, by changing the speed of the balls, we assign skills to them. Okay, type 1 agent were able to collect 30 red balls in 90 seconds and 60 blue balls. And type 2 agent were able to collect 100 red balls and 25 blue balls. So collecting those balls were so easy. Everyone is capable of doing this. Okay, and in maximum production for both types was 20 points. So since this point is perfect complement, right? So marginal benefit of each point they obtain is 2, right? And marginal cost of each point they obtained is 1.2 for both types, as it is shown in here. Okay, and then I'm going to explain. So it is optimal in the individual contest to collect the balls, right? So because marginal benefit is higher than marginal cost. Okay, so for the individual contest, what would be the time allocation? So these were the types. So type 1 will allocate 2/3 of his time on task A and 1/3 of his time on task B. Type 2 will allocate 1/5 of his time on task A and 4/5 of his time on task B. Okay, and at the end of each period, subjects saw how many red and blue balls they collected and their points. So this is the individual contest part. In the team contest part, we have 4 treatments. Okay, so we either changed whether subjects were able to communicate or not, or we changed the team production function. Remember, we were trying to look at, we are going to look at both free riding behavior by looking at output substitutable team production function, and we are going to look at complementarity, whether subjects utilize complementarity in their skills by looking at the input substitutable case. Okay, so these are the treatments we have. Okay, so in the team contest, we also have prize for winning team as 200 tokens. And if a team wins the prize, they're going to share equally between teammates. And the likelihood of winning the prize is the same. P1, so this time, this is the first team, this is the second. This P1 is the point achieved by team 1, and P2 is the points achieved by P2, team 2. Okay, and team's point is either determined by 2 different production functions, either according to output substitutable, which is minimum of red and blue balls collected by agent I, or red and blue balls collected by agent J. Okay, remember in the individual contest, their points were determined according to minimum red and blue balls they collected. Okay, in the input substitutable case, minimum of minimum of red balls collected within a team and blue balls collected within a team. Okay, so that specialization or collecting task allocation can be possible in the input substitutable case, not in the output substitutable case. Okay, so we have those treatments for the team production function, and we also have communication. Okay, so again, the cost is 24 tokens for 90 seconds, and subject receive feedback on red and blue balls they got and their team point, and we didn't give any feedback about the opposing team. Okay, because we wanted to focus on their own team and this allocating the tasks, etc. Okay, instead of like strategic situation. Okay, so what is our prediction in here? So by output substitutable treatment, we are gonna test whether free riding is gonna be observed compared to the individual contest. So in here we have 5 treatments, right? We have individual contest, and we have these 4 treatments. Okay, we are going to compare those compared to the individual contest. Okay, how subjects' behavior changed from individual contest to team contest. Okay, in the output substitutable case, we are going to look at whether free riding will arise or social group identity, team identity will arise. In the input substitutable case, there are multiple. Specialization is the best possible Pareto dominant equilibria. If they do the task at which they are best, is the best possible situation, but it requires coordination. So since it requires coordination, we checked also communication. They have effect of the communication. So in some of the treatments we allowed for the communication. In some of the treatments we didn't allow. Okay, for the output substitutable case, there's a classical social dilemma situation that we also have in the public goods game, right? It is optimal, so marginal benefit is 2 in the individual contest, and marginal cost is 1.2. Although it is optimal to work in the individual contest, it's not optimal to work in the group team contest. So we expect free riding if social group identity theory doesn't dominate. Okay, we are going to check free riding behavior, and then in the input substitutable team contest, depending on marginal cost, there's a multiplicity of equilibria, and according to our construction, so marginal cost is bigger than marginal benefit when individuals perform in both tasks, right? As in here, marginal cost 1.2, marginal benefit is 1. It is bigger than, marginal cost is bigger than marginal benefit if they perform on both tasks, which is the output substitutable case. But marginal benefit is higher than marginal cost when individuals perform just one task. Okay, in this treatment, we group type 1 and type 2 individuals. Remember, they have different skills in collecting red and blue balls into a team, and they compete against a similar team to themselves. Okay, and team output can be any number between minimum of 30 and 25. Okay, which is the amount of balls. Red balls can be collected by type 1, blue balls can be collected by type 2, and red balls, 60s red balls can be collected by type 1, and blue balls can be collected by type 2. Okay, so team output can be any number between those two, and Pareto dominant equilibrium is telling you that specialization of individuals on the task according to their comparative advantages will bring the highest possible payoff, which is 60, right? Minimum of 60 and 100. But this 100 guy can stop at 60 and start subsidizing this person after reaching 60. Okay, then if he does that, they can achieve 68. Okay, but it is possible to produce less than output substitutable treatment. Here is 25, right? In the output substitutable, they were able to produce 20. If both of them produce 20, they can obtain 40 as a team outcome. Okay, But it is possible to produce less than output substitutable treatment if they coordinate on wrong tasks or couldn't coordinate at all. Okay. So through communication, we are trying to see the coordination effect on input substitutable case, but there shouldn't be any effect in the output substitutable case. Okay, teammates who are able to communicate produce more. Okay, so we run the experiments at METU, the laboratory that I showed you, the picture of the laboratory earlier. We used 192 subjects, and we have 16 sessions in total, 4 sessions in all treatments. There were 12 periods in a session, and individual and contest subject went through both individual contest and team contest. 6 periods individual contest and 6 periods team contest. And we also controlled for the order. If a subject went through multiple treatments in a session, you need to control for the order as well. Okay, first individual contest and team, or first team contest and individual. Okay, and we accept 12 subjects to session. We had 6 type 1 and 6 type 2. And as I said, by changing the speed of the balls, we assigned skills. Balls fall at different rates for different people. The subjects learn their productivities at their piece race stage. And individual contest stage compete against an individual with similar capacity for 6 periods. And in team contest stage, they are grouped into a team with the same person and compete against a team with the same capacity for 6 periods. And they learn their teammates' first stage performance in order to make this specialization situation. Okay, so in order to let them know the comparative advantages who has in which task. Okay, and the experiment is programmed as Z3. And in communication treatment, we allow for communication for 60 seconds before the first period and before the 4th period. And for earnings, we gave piece race stage earnings and randomly drawn periods earning for 12 period contest. Average payoff was 25 Turkish liras, including 5 Turkish liras show-up fee. Okay, we have 4 main findings from this experiment, but we didn't observe any free riding. Social group identity prevails according to our findings. And we observe higher output due to collaboration in input substitutable treatment, yes. And we observe difference in time allocation between the tasks and treatments. And the role of, we observe the role of communication is higher in the input substitutable treatment and then the output substitutable treatment, okay? So when we look at the average output by treatment, when we look at individual and output substitutable cases, there is no significant difference between individual contest and output substitutable contest. So we didn't observe free riding. But input substitutable output is quite higher than those, and we observe that subjects coordinate on the specializing on the task that they are better. Okay, they learn, they know working on their comparative advantages. Okay, but and also communication has a role on that. In the output substitutable treatment, there is no role of communication, but with the input substitutable treatment, by allowing chat, increase the output. Okay, and when we look at how their performance change by period, we observe a similarity. So these 3 lines belong to individual contest and output substitutable team contest and output substitutable with chat. There's no significant difference between among those 3, but this orange one belongs to input substitutable treatment. So subjects perform better in the input substitutable treatment, and they perform much better when we allow the communication. Okay, and we also look at whether this difference, so remember this neither button, neither button allowed them to free ride, actually, not work at all, because working was costly. We looked at hitting on a neither button, which is measuring the free riding. Percentage of 90-second period spent on neither task. So look at this, it's highest in the individual contest, which should be the lowest, right? So we were expecting hitting the neither button in the output substitutable contest, but it decreased. So the increase in the performance is not due to the difference in the average outputs between input and output substitutable treatments, is not due to free riding, but team members work on the task at which they are best. Okay, when we look at the number of balls collecting, so this is task A and task B actually. Task A is red balls, task B is blue balls. We were expecting equal numbers, right? So equal numbers 20, but they collect more balls in the when they have a higher skill on that. Okay, so for instance, type 1 has higher skill in blue balls. They collect more blue balls in the individual output substitutable and output substitutable with chat. Similarly, type 2s. Okay, so this is the reason they performed less than 20. Okay, and in the input substitutable case, so type 1 should only produce at the test at which he's good at, right? So, but he also produced at A, but in the direction-wise, specialization is there, but it's not the optimal. We observe this situation in the time allocations as well. Remember, type 1 should allocate 2/3 of his time on the task he's weaker, but he allocate less time. He allocate more time on the task that he's stronger, similarly in here, okay? And they are not fully allocating the time on which they are stronger in the input substitutable case, okay? And then we run a regression to verify those through the regression as well. Okay, so type 2 was, remember, collecting 100 red balls, is good at in the first task. Okay, so being type 2 shouldn't affect the performance in the individual contest or output substitutable contest, but as we said, they collected more balls in the task they are stronger. But if you look at the coefficients in here, okay, you can see that in the input substitutable treatment, this coefficient is higher, verifying they are specializing on the test that they are better, they are collecting more balls. Okay, so we also look at the communication data, okay, and in the communication data, we also observe subjects with whether subject use the words related to equilibrium strategy or the best equilibrium strategy, and we saw that in the output substitutable treatment, this is the frequency, most of the subjects are collecting equal amount of both. In the input substitutable treatments, they mostly talk about specialization. You do this, I will do this, blah, blah. They are allocating the task according to their comparative advantages. So in summary, there are two findings of our experiment. The first one is verifying the findings in the literature. We do not observe free riding in team contests, some of the literature actually. There's no difference in effort levels in individual contests and output substitutable team contests. This is new performance due to complementary skills. So there's a productivity gain due to division of tasks of the team members, and productivity gain due to specialization is even higher when communication is allowed. So combining 1 and 2, there's little downside of organizing team contests, and there's strong productivity gain if teammates with complementary skills can collaborate. Thank you. Any question?
Okay, thank you very much, Mürüvvet. So now I want to open the floor to the audience for questions or comments. As you can notice, there are two parts here in the presentation. About a general information about the experimental economics and behavioral economics, and actually I gained a lot from that information part. Personally, thank you very much, Mürüvvet, for that part. And the second part is the research, a paper published, and so you can ask questions regarding to both of the parts, or have any comments. You can state them to Mürüvvet. So the floor is for the audience. Any questions or comments? Usually people say that when there is silence, everything is understood. Okay, I actually have one thing about one, maybe we can say one assumption about repeating the experiment. And you said that under exactly the same conditions. Actually, can it be possible when there is a human in the experiment? For example, I can be some student in your laboratory. You showed a photograph there, and in the first experiment, I can have a mood I can have a good mood, and I can be happy, and give and act with that environment. And another day, for example, you may try to repeat the experiment, but in that day I may have some concerns, and that might affect my behavior. So while repeating, as I said, can we really provide exactly the same conditions? Or did you try how results change at the end? Is it huge or just a small one which can be omitted? I mean, can you open that part a little bit more?
Sure. Actually, yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. We are comparing the sessions, the data, whether the data change from session to session, not much. Okay, so because we are looking at the aggregate results, so not one individual may have a good day, one individual have a bad day, they may compensate each other. So in aggregate, it's not affecting, but there are studies showing the effect of emotions, right? So they are inducing emotions, as you said, inducing emotions. And for instance, there's a paper in 2016 in Journal of Public Economics. They are looking at whether inducing anger or inducing like a happy moment through a video affects people's pro-sociality in a public good game. Okay, and they found a difference on that. So, yes, you are right. So inducing emotions, like your mood can change your behavior or your decisions. There's also another thing, for instance, for public good games, not public good games, sorry, for the actual public good games. So it can change from country to country. Okay, so how, for instance, if this community is familiar with the imece usulü, right? So they work together for instance, they are hunting whales. Hunting whale is a huge thing, so everybody should work together, and they get used to this community working. So they are sharing more. But individualistic societies, for instance, you are doing everything by yourself. So this caring about only yourself is more common. Okay, from society to society, it can change. But mostly, if it is observed in many times, so they are valid. And it's commonly observed, and explaining those behavioral deviations due to this country's properties or behavior of the people in general. For instance, one study is looking at dishonest behavior of people from country to country, whether they are good at with the laws or how strict those laws are affecting their dishonest behavior. But understanding those are also important, I think. How our underground thinking, the behaviors that we are doing in everyday lives or societal things affect our behavior is also part of the behavioral economics, I think.
Okay, thank you. And one other thing, I think Emine Beyza Satoğlu, the question.
Hello.
Yes, Emine.
Hello.
Hi.
Sıdıka abla, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Professor Mürüvvet. I'm so happy to join this session because I learned a lot. I'm not so much into the topic. I'm doing study mostly based on data, so with the secondary data. But I wanted to first thank for the presentation, and second for the maybe results. I can give some data from my own experience on the results of this paper. In my one of my classes, I'm teaching international business. We are making we are making teams for at the international level. So each of my students join some teams from some other countries. This is kind of a project. Actually, I think academicians, organize this to get data on how teams work, but actually it helps the students. And from my observation on this experience, I see both of your results, your findings, that there is, because contests for the projects they present, they will at the end of the year, there will be some awards for the project. So it's like, even if they are friends here, they don't help each other because they are in the contest and they study harder. I see the effort point, and also I see the second effect when they are teamed up with people who can help and who can lead the group with their complementary skills. I see that the productivity of the task is much higher, even if our students sometimes have problems with English level, or sometimes, because I'm teaching in economics, they are failing because of their lack of knowledge in business. And yeah, I see that effect of complementary skills, especially when there are some team members who have who are happy to help the other students. That's what I wanted to add to your study, because I see from data actually what you find.
Glad to hear. It's represented.
Yeah, I was also glad to see the theoretical part of the what I observed. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I should add this to motivation back.
Yes, motivation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Comment.
Okay, any other comments, question? I will ask one other thing, more practical side of it. If I want to make an experiment, can I use your laboratory opportunities there? Is it possible for others to share the laboratory?
Yeah, we are renting for our. We are trying to arrange how money should be done, like money issues should be done with the school, but we weren't able to do that yet. But hopefully, after this pandemic is over, it would be possible. We will start working on those again, because some other people were also asking. And while we are building this, we were aiming such situations as well. Yeah, we are trying to do that. Just trying to establish how to rent this. Every time, yeah, you are welcome.
Okay. And about funding the experiments, are there institutions or individuals who help in that part, financing part, funding the experiments?
TÜBİTAK, I'm applying TÜBİTAK for that. Also, BAP is the budget is decreased so much recently, but BAP is also another option in the schools. I'm using those, and the students in our school is not requiring that much money. But I don't know after the inflation what will happen though. Yeah, we should increase like the monies that we are paying. This money is the hourly money is generally compared with the hourly wages for the minimum wage. So we are saying that okay, hourly wage of people who earn minimum wage is this, and we are paying more than that for the country level. So because how do you compare subjects are incentivized well compared to the other countries, for instance. So if you are doing a cross-country experiment, this is another problem, for instance. How are you going to pay in different countries? So this is how you do. Okay. So they are paying, for instance, $10. Average payment in the US, for instance, let's say $20. But $20 in our country comes to too much money. Okay, so what should be a good enough money for hourly wage, for instance? So for thinking that we are doing like this. But depending on where you are running the experiment, this money can change. Or for instance, Bilkent students may not be incentivized enough with the money that I'm paying for the METÜ students. So it is also changing from, or coach students, I don't know, like depending on where we are running the experiments. The money that you need to pay may change.
Yes. Okay. I would like to thank to you once more.
Thank you.
And for the audience, I hope to see you again in our next AYBU era seminar. And we will put this in our YouTube channel, and you can tell your friends who missed here at this hour can follow it later on in our YouTube channel. So thank you to all of you, and have a nice evening, let's say. Now, okay, see you soon later. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.